From the Cactus, KCTS FM Phoenix, I'm Jamison Greenwood, and this is Greenwood and Company. Well, I hope everybody's ready to take a break from the news this week. A lot of news this week, very intense, but wanted to share with you all a funny story that I was remembering when I was going to college in the Arizona high country, and I saw a truck carrying a bunch of port-a-potties, and I would not believe, and you would not believe, the context that it was actually in, but I'll share that with you in just a little bit. Any of you who have listened to this show for any length of time know that going to college in the Arizona high country left me with a soft spot for it, and on one of my most recent trips I explored some of the trails out there among the pine trees, and so I wrote this poem that we're going to start the show with called High Country Trail. Clearing in the mighty ponderosas, where a railroad track waits to carry freight, downward slope of a rain-soaked sandy path, with an infinite hill of pine trees who beckons like the smile of a puppy dog, or a lovely girl just before the first kiss. Along the path yellow dandelions bloom with no restraints, awaiting pollen from honey bees working like Manhattan lawyers. The bees at least don't know how much there's more to life than work, though not for bees. Humankind must escape corporate silos, outside the tall glass buildings of work, as clouds dim out the sun, but still a little room to the baby blue skies, as the light breeze welcomes them home tonight. From under the railroad bridge a squirrel emerges. Her bushy tail hides her face as human presence means a threat, even if we only look and never touch her. Other houses watch from the hills above. One house searches for hummingbirds with its 3 red feeders, needing an angel's presence in their fluttering wings. 2 boxer dogs moan 2 porches east, wanting the human below to come play with them, but he must walk back to his home among the ponderosas. But he'll visit his flora and fauna friends on another stroll in the forest tomorrow. Celebrating the beauty of the Arizona high country here at Greenwood and Company. Support for this program and KCTS comes from the Society for Cats with Mathematics Test Anxiety, the Used Car Salesman Plaid Sport Coat Foundation, and the Shag Carpet Preservation Fund. So it all started, this story about the strange port-a-potties, one evening, in fact, before, when I decided to go treat myself to a more sophisticated dinner. On one particular Friday evening in April, I got an A+ on my paper discussing the possible implications of Gulliver's Travels on modern-day polarization, and decided to treat myself to a fancier dinner at Four Dragons Chinese restaurant before joining my friends at Brew-Beck's. After my classes and work ended, I walked downtown to Four Dragons, where I ordered a full 4-course meal. Egg rolls and crab puffs, hot and sour soup, lemongrass chicken with rice, and a fortune cookie, complemented with jasmine tea. All the dishes were old favorites I had enjoyed at our local Chinese restaurant, Bamboo House, when I was growing up in Phoenix, but the hot and sour soup seemed to wreak havoc on my colon. Before leaving, I was forced to visit a public restroom, something I don't especially like to do when the visit requires me, as a male, to sit. I took my food to go, but rather than joining my friends at Brew-Beck's, I stopped at Walgreens to buy some Imodium before going home. Due to the unfortunate profit-driven nature of the United States healthcare system, the price of the drug strained my bank account, and I was forced to make 3 stops along the HCU campus, the biology building, the student union, and the Autry Library, because of the unpredictable lower digestive time bomb ticking within me. The one good decision I made was the chance decision to wear black jeans and an oversized undershirt. Despite my plans for future meals, I threw my leftovers away between the biology building and the library, as you never know what types of life-threatening sewer gases may sneak their way into your doggy bag if left on the counters of public restrooms. After binging Simpsons episodes and saying my nightly prayer, I regretted not getting to see Annabelle perform at Brew-Beck's. She had no idea I had such a large crush on her, but I feared any absence from Brew-Beck's church or other events or locations we congregated at would sour her view of me and obliterate the chances we would become a couple. Moreover, I feared that I would be unable to play cribbage with Colton, as I had promised to do with him the next day. However, I woke up feeling much better on Saturday morning, and after showering, getting dressed, and grabbing a deck of cards, I walked to Brew-Beck's, where Colton was waiting for me with my coffee and his cribbage board. Feeling better, I paid him the $5 or so for the coffee and a snickerdoodle cookie, which I felt good enough to substitute for an actual breakfast, and we set about counting our cards and moving our pegs. Colton grew up playing cribbage with his family in Seattle, but we played so rarely that he had to explain it every time. Though my Grammy hosted bridge parties at her house every Friday afternoon, as women of her generation did, I never knew how to play bridge. The two games I did know, estimate and canasta, I wasn't good at. Within the first 15 minutes, it was clear through all my asking Colton to come over and check my cards and explain the best plays that he was going to win. When I got to the bottom of my coffee cup, we took a break and discussed the performances at Brew-Beck's last night while Colton refilled my cup. Annabelle was, of course, the epitome of the evening, as an accomplished sax player should be, but she had refrained from playing Dream by Johnny Mercer, knowing it was a favorite of mine and I wouldn't want to miss it. However, the most interesting performance that evening was Danny, Otto, and Barney, made interesting only by its ending in disaster. Danny Otto was a ventriloquist, and his dummy was Barney. He was not purple or a dinosaur, thank goodness. Rather, they were dressed like ventriloquists from vaudeville in the golden age of Hollywood, matching tuxedos with red jackets, white shirts, black pants, and bow ties. But you could tell from the dark circles under Danny's eyes and the rancid smell of Heineken and Jack Daniels on his breath that his act had a high bar to reach. Colton told me of the woefully dated jokes that Danny and Barney exchanged. "Hey, Barney," Danny asked as a loud burp interrupted his delivery. Who was that lady I saw you with last night?" Barney, a non-living wooden puppet, looked much more sober than his human operator, but the fact that he didn't live was painfully obvious as a drunken Danny Otto made no effort whatsoever to make his puppeteering seamless. "That, was no, lady. That was my wife, Colton mentioned some children were present, and of course they were laughing hysterically at the burps, but most of their parents and other adult audience members found the pain induced by their fake smiles more and more unbearable. The laughter stopped when Danny asked Barney how he, being a dummy, managed to get into Mensa despite being a wooden puppet. But the ventriloquist could not open his puppet's mouth. He tried shifting his hand among the inner controls in every direction conceivable, but Barney the dummy kept pleading the fifth. Having to explain the visible storm inside Barney's torso, Danny said, "He's having some digestive issues. Let me turn him around in case he throws up." Colton was about to tell me what became as the ventriloquist turned around when we heard, felt, and smelled a big waft of stale, stinky air. And much to my chagrin, we have to take another stupid station break, but when we come back, I will tell you a little bit more about the origins of that stale, stinky smell. You are listening to Greenwood and Company on KCTS. You know the value of Prince and Popper microwave popcorn. How it gives you that old-fashioned homemade taste while helping you 86-year-old microwave. Now, Prince and Popper is proud to introduce 2 new flavors, cheddar cheese and kettle corn. They're the same pop-resistant kernels of our traditional butter-flavored popcorn, but now with the savory cheddar and sugary kettle flavors. The cheddar flavoring is probably just a mixture of salt and ground up orange tissue paper, and the kettle corn's probably a mixture of high fructose corn syrup and lead-based paint, but it's 2 new flavors of popcorn to enjoy with movies and the ones you love. Why wait? Pick up a bag of Prince and Popper microwave popcorn in new cheddar cheese and kettle corn flavors. Prince and Popper microwave popcorn may contain allergens along with asbestos and other carcinogenic chemicals. Consult a physician with a revoked license prior to use and do not store near heat source or flammable materials. Can also double as kindling for your fireplace or barbecue grill. Prince and Popper microwave popcorn. Available at Giggits supermarkets and other subpar retailers. And welcome back. You are listening to Greenwood and Company on the Cactus, KCTS. Now, before the break, Colton and I were talking about Danny, Otto, and Barney when something funky caught our attention. Colton worried it was the toilet in the men's room, which went bad a couple of weeks in the past. Then when we looked outside, there was a port-a-potty truck that pulled up in front of Brew-Beck's. A couple of truck-driving guys in plaid t-shirts, work boots, and hard hats with thick, bushy mustaches got out. By the way, what is the plural for mustache? Is it mustache, mustache? We'll have to consult the Oxford American Dictionary to figure that out, but Colton and I saw these truck drivers come in, and we thought they would order some coffees or maybe a scone, but they asked Colton how many people he thought Brew-Beck's could accommodate. Well, maybe 150, Colton said. Nah, they responded, that's going to be too small. So then they walked across the street to Mary Lou Higgins' restaurant, which is a Denny's-type place where you go if you're a high school theater geek, and in about 5 minutes they walked out, got back into their port-a-potty truck, and drove off. Now, Colton and I thought this was weird, but we didn't think it was worth spending brain power on, and we returned to the cribbage game. So, after a mediocre play by me and discussing Heather and Annabelle's upcoming performance in the Glass Menagerie, I remembered Danny Otto's ventriloquist woes. Colton continued to relay the previous night's events. There was no evidence that either Danny Otto or his dummy Barney had any violent regurgitations, but many of the adults unaccompanied by children got their coffees to go and turned around. Annabelle was waiting at a table with Heather in case a replacement performance was needed, but Danny did eventually turn around. "Barney?" Danny asked. "Yes, Danny?" "Is it true that you once dated a sycamore tree?" "Yes, she made a lot of good switches." Complete silence from the audience ensued. Danny tried to ask Barney something else related to his dummy sycamore lover. He'd such high hopes that the sycamore romance jokes would resonate, but those dreams were dashed when Barney went to answer. The only words he got out were, "Well, now that you ask that, when his mouthpiece detached from his head and fell to the ground. The children who were sitting cross-legged in front of the stage gasped. Bending over to pick up the mouthpiece, Danny got up and attempted to reattach it, but this caused the springs holding Barney's eyes and his head to dislodge. The children screamed. "I think I'd better get Barney and I to the hospital, folks. In the meantime, here's Annabelle Thaxton." Colton had no information for me about the medical condition of our wooden friend, but whatever damages he'd endured were bound to be much more easily repaired and less expensive than the ventriloquist. Danny must have weighed about 500 pounds, and he had to bring his own industrial-strength folding chair for the act, as he completely broke the wooden bar stool that Brew-Beck supplied after sitting on it, thus explaining the Band-Aid over his right eyebrow. We continued our cribbage game until we heard a police officer's whistle outside. A squad car went right past Brew-Beck's, and behind him the port-a-potty truck we saw earlier, a second port-a-potty truck with different colored stalls, then a black, mint-condition Lincoln Town Car hearse, and a matching black, mint-condition Lincoln Town Car's limousine passed by. Then a final port-a-potty truck drove by, and San Jose Street was populated with Saturday morning pedestrians. As expected, Colton won the cribbage game, and I soon had to leave to go shopping. As I left Brew-Beck's regretting missing Annabelle the night before, I walked past Mary Lou Higgins and noticed a lot of cars in the parking lot, one of which was the hearse. Apparently, we figured out later, the premier port-a-potty salesman of the Southwest died, and the trucks were part of his funeral procession. But the funeral had such spontaneous planning that no reception area was picked until the day of. This also marked the realization that I neglected to take an Imodium that morning. In addition, I made the mistake of wearing khaki cargo pants, so unless I could make it long enough to walk to Grandma's garage thrift shop and buy a long shirt to cover my behind, I would probably have a spot of something embarrassing and difficult to explain along the rear seam of my pants. Though unsure if it was appropriate, even in the case of a funeral procession,
I figured someone was bound to understand my next step. I climbed into one of the porta-potties, got there just in time. I would not have to go to the thrift store or have an embarrassing spot. As to what happened when the truck began to move with me still in the porta-potty, that will remain unexplained. You are listening to Greenwood and Company on KCTS.
Hi, I'm Wilfred Brimley. You know, when you first find out from your doctor that you got continuous diarrhea and you see the shocked faces of people that you pass on the street and the small trail of brown liquid behind you everywhere you go, it can be mind-boggling. But life gets easier when you get a prescription for Encrocia, the once-daily medicine that keeps your continuous diarrhea under control. Doesn't do much for diabetes, but it can still help you live a better life.
Encrocia may interfere with drugs used to manage diabetes and other chronic health issues. Other conditions such as eczema and sudden toe disintegration may occur while taking Encrocia. Taking Encrocia alone or with some other medicines may result in loss of health insurance coverage. This product is known to cause athlete's foot in the state of Arizona. Other risks include death and zombification in rare cases. If you notice any of these, call your doctor right away and ask him to double your dose.
With Encrocia, continuous diarrhea agrees to my terms.
Ask your doctor if Encrocia is right for you. Oh, I bet y'all are gearing up to write a bunch of nasty emails to KCTS after that story I told you. But this was one of those weeks where it was kinda difficult for me to come up with ideas, so I decided that instead of trying to come up with a good poem that I wouldn't be able to, I was just going to have to share with you a bad poem. This poem I've written is not very good. The quality's brittle like dry rotted wood. It doesn't convey my original thoughts. The rhyme schemes and meters make readers' minds rot. Perhaps none of my poems are pleasing to you. You don't find that my joys are the times I feel blue. Add that much to your life which is really quite hectic. You must feel that my poems are really quite septic. But I still try my best when I write such bad verse, to make it a blessing, not make it a curse. Though I know that this poem didn't tug at your heart, I hope that you'll see it as comic an art. And I hope and I pray, though right now I feel bleak, that I'll have a good poem when I come back next week. That brings an end to this week's Greenwood and Company. Our show was created and hosted by yours truly and was written by him along with James Salison and Minnesota Martinez. The engineer is Ivan Crosby. Jonas Andrews answers the phones even though we don't take calls on this program. The theme was composed by Martin Landstrom, and our costumes are provided by Grandma's Garage Thrift Shop. All the characters, settings, and situations depicted in this program, along with all advertised products, are entirely fictional, and any similarities to products, events, or persons, living or dead, is entirely coincidental. Also, KCTS is not an actual radio station. Just a reminder to please be careful if you are going out on the 101, the 17, or Route 66 tonight. I'm Jamison Greenwood, and until we meet again, stay healthy, stay safe, and stay young at heart. Good night. This is KCTS FM Phoenix. Stay tuned for Lacking in Substance.